but nothing is getting better. Now the engagement has risen with all the awareness stuff that we're doing, but we're not actually addressing the underlying stresses. We're just plastering over the symptoms.
Hi und herzlich willkommen zu einer neuen Folge von Well-being Wednesday. Heute darf ich einen ganz besonderen Gast bei mir im Studio begrüßen, nämlich Ryan Hopkins. Ryan Hopkins ist auf einer Mission. Er möchte 1 Milliarde Menschen erreichen und ihr Wohlbefinden, ihr Well-being verbessern. Er ist aktuell Chief Impact Officer bei Check. Er ist LinkedIn Top Voice für Work-Life-Balance. Er ist TEDx-Speaker. Er ist Gastgeber des Audacious Goal Clubs. Und er ist Autor von 52 Weeks of Wellbeing, a Nonsense Guide to a Fulfilling Work-Life. Dieses Buch wird im Januar 2024 erscheinen. Ryan hat mit seiner Arbeit das Leben von Hunderttausenden von Menschen positiv beeinflusst, weil er eine enorme Reichweite auf Social Media hat. Und dort erzählt er offen von seiner persönlichen Geschichte mit Bulimie, Depressionen und Angstzuständen. Dieses Gespräch ist auf Englisch, denn Ryan spricht kein Deutsch. Ich habe dir allerdings in den Shownotes eine komplette Übersetzung des Gesprächs hinterlegt, sodass auch du alles nachvollziehen kannst. Ich wünsche dir ganz viel Spaß. Welcome, Ryan. Thank you so much for taking your time and being on this podcast with me.
Thanks for having me.
Ryan, how would you define a healthy work life? What is well-being for you?
Straight into it. Love it. Let's go. So I'm going to say it depends, the classic consulting answer, because what's healthy for one isn't healthy for another. And I don't think it's about looking for work-life balance. I think that exists either. I think it's life, which work is one part of. So I think a healthy work life is where someone has work as an integral part of what makes them who they are. It doesn't detract from their health. So we go to work, we do our stuff, and we got the space, the time, the flexibility to do what we need to be our best self. And I think it's as simple as that, because it's not an organization's responsibility to improve happiness, but it is their responsibility not to worsen it. So I think that's what a healthy work life looks like. It's where you get the option to work out what your healthy life looks like.
Oh, I love that definition. I said a little bit in the intro about you and your work, but it's always best if guests introduce themselves a little bit more. Can you tell us more about your journey and how your journey led you where you are right now?
Yeah. How long do you want the answer? That is the question.
We have a bit of time for this.
So
Because I know your journey has been very interesting and I would love for you to share it in a bit more detail.
yeah, of course. When I was younger, I was trained to be an electrician. So there were no books or TED Talks on the horizon for young Ryan Hopkins. But I had an accident and I broke my leg and my ankle. I didn't walk for about a year and spiraled into quite a deep depression. And at that time, made plans to take my own life because I had no future, I had no prospects. I put my knots away. I was isolated. I was miserable. I journeyed out of that, and then over the years of working out what I wanted to do, I fought with bulimia for a few years as I tried to lose the weight, and then I went the other way and got ginormous and pulled buses and stuff, and I still hated who I was with an absolute passion. Finally I went to university quite late because I didn't have any A-levels or qualifications. Because just from our household, having to work from a young age and family splits and stuff like that. But it was good. I got there late, put a lot of pressure on myself to succeed. And I was like, this is your one shot. You don't get a second go at this. I was so anxious at that time. And every time I left my front door, I felt like I was going to wet myself. And that lasted for a few years as well and just ended up stopped going out. I got a job on the Deloitte grad scheme as potentially the oldest graduate ever. And yeah, like Robert De Niro in The Apprentice, just like going into the Google office. And I worked in like digital transformation, configuring organizations, stuff like that, big program management. And I started to share my story one piece at a time as I felt comfortable. And then ended up setting up well-being functions with clients. Then started doing the internal work at Deloitte, to cut to Deloitte's people, creating ways of working frameworks. And I'm learning that it's not the individual that's the problem in the workplace, it's the work itself. And you have to configure the space, as I said before, for the people to do what they need. Because you could have given me the world's best app. I was in that really low place in a wheelchair. And I would have told me to piss off, to be honest. I just need the love and attention, the affection of people around me. So I learned that it's not always about more, it's about less, often. And ruthless prioritization of what's important. It's little things that add up to make a huge difference. And I'm getting more confident with this world and said, this is what I'm going to do. So it was too early at Deloitte to lead this business. So I left to go into Sainsbury's to lead well-being there, or build that out with their tech function, which was amazing. Gave me like the belief that this was my thing. I started doing writing and speaking at that time. I said, if you want to be a leader in this space, you've got to start showing up, fella. And I was like, I'm going to get it done. And then I was made redundant. I took a role as the workplace as a future lead at Finastra, a big fintech. Did some really cool stuff. We did like unlimited paid vacation, the first big global company to roll it out for every market. Rights disconnect policy, focusing on using tech in a sustainable fashion. Ended up teaching Microsoft how to use their own tools. Saved the business like 2.5 million hours by focusing on these small improvements. What's important. I was thinking, this is the future of well-being. And that's where that concept was born. I proposed that concept as a business to Deloitte. Come back to Deloitte after another redundancy. Thinking, is this for me? Yeah. But carried on writing, carried on speaking. Come back to Deloitte and I built that business and taken this thinking around the world. And now I've directly positively influenced the lives of 500,000 people with this work, making work better for people. And yeah, doing lots of writing and speaking. As I said, I've reached about 10 million people on socials now. Did a TED Talk recently, a book coming out in January. By the time this goes live, I'll be taking on a new role as the Chief Impact Officer at Jack. Just asked a question. An amazing, innovative wellbeing startup. I truly believe that we're going to help a lot of people by democratizing information and meeting people where they are. So yeah, that's the journey. And I'm bloody confident that I'm going to engage 1 billion people in the betterment of wellbeing. That's what I set out to do. I put that marker in front of me and now I just want to get it done.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing all of this, Ryan. And maybe we can talk about your new role in the next episode at one of the coming podcasts. But I would quite like to dive a little bit deeper into your current role as the global wellbeing lead at Deloitte, because this season is all about how we can work differently. And I would love for you to tell us a little bit more. You said you reached a lot of people touching the well-being of work. Can you take us a little bit deeper? How does that look like? What do you do?
Of course I can. So it's working with clients and governments. A few examples and stats, I love a stat. So only 1% to 2% of companies or organizations in the UK, I'm guessing this is the same for all as well, are using organizational data such as attrition, engagement, absenteeism, work week data, holiday days taken to measure the effectiveness of their well-being efforts. So currently it's bikes, bananas and one-off events. It's an app, it's a benefit, it's something that's on the side, it's a solution. And we are seeing again and again and again that workplace stress is up and up and up and up and up. But nothing is getting better. Now the engagement has risen with all the awareness stuff that we're doing, but we're not actually addressing the underlying stresses. We're just plastering over the symptom. And I think it's almost like the boiling pot with the increased awareness. Now people are acutely aware they have an issue, but we're doing nothing for the underlying stresses. We continue to automate tasks within the workplace, and we're going to see that continue with Gen AI. And the work's becoming increasingly transactional. So we're treating people like interfaces on machine. So what we're trying to help organizations do is just stop a second, have a look at we call it the NICER, the needs, the interests, the concerns, the expectations and the risks of the various demographics in the workforce. Do that work before you do anything. And chances are you'll understand most of what you're offering could be potentially exacerbating or worsening subjective well-being. The people that already use these things are people that already have a better sense of subjective well-being. So you have to look at how the work is designed. You have to set up the analytics capability to understand the people and link that to a financial cost. It then becomes a CFO priority, a CEO priority, and you're enabled to do the things that make the difference to the colleagues, rather than just providing an app or a solution or a benefit or a webinar, podcast like this. This isn't always the answer, but we're here today trying to help and educate. So what we've done, once we loads of companies to do that work, they've been, blimey, okay, we need to do a lot here. So we've helped them refresh the strategy, set up a cross-functional offering, often bringing IT in, because I actually think they're going to be the main part of the well-being function moving forward, or they should be, because most of us work through laptop.
Mm,
Yet we don't consider how this affects us and the fact we can't switch off at all.
mm,
So it's configuring all of that, and then we're working with a government to help them do their 4-day work week in some of their functions, like the control trial. So the work that we do shifts the focus from well-being being the focus area to it being the outcomes. We configure the organization, and then we're looking at it differently with regards to strategies. Just health. If a strategy is mental, physical, emotional, it means you're just looking at the individual. Whereas we should be thinking broader and looking at financial, lifestyle, the policies, the work itself, the experience. That's what we're trying to change the perception of it in as this fringe thing to actually building it into the way in which the work is
mm,
done.
mm.
Yeah, that's kind of like a high level. It's good fun. It's been really cool, and it's changing the way that people think about it. So it's hard sometimes because you look at preconceived ideas. What it is, it's this soft, fluffy thing. We just chuck on a few events, job done. It's so far from that. Well-being and
Yeah.
productivity, performance, it absolutely linked. Without a sense of well-being, you cannot be productive for yourself or the organization.
Very well said and very strong statement. Is there anything, I mean, I can only imagine how interesting it is, and there must be so many findings that you could talk about, but is there anything you'd say that stands out for you, or something that was really a aha moment?
Yeah. So 3 things. One thing that I've done personally in 2 studies that I think are amazing. When I was the workplace, the future lead, I told you we saved 2.5 million hours for the business by focusing on the digital environment, creating space for what's important. And as a result, engagement went up about 30%. LinkedIn followers went up 50%. And then voluntary attrition reduced dramatically, saving millions. So people then were staying inside the business, and we weren't mentioning well-being. Well-being is the outcome.
Mm-hmm.
So we're creating a space for people to do what they need, and then providing the services that they want as and when they need them. And then also exemplifying the behavior. So by configuring the organization to create some space, it was hugely impactful. And it wasn't the traditional well-being route that people see. And that was amazing. I think that's what a lot of us could do it, because it's been a 250% increase in meetings compared to pre-pandemic. But our workload is exactly the same.
Mm-hmm.
And musculoskeletal issues are absolutely on the rise. I've got a terrible back because I've been hunched over too long. And we're going to see it play out.
Mm-hmm.
You sitting in the chair, me sitting in the chair. We need to move a bit, right?
Yeah.
So we're seeing that play out equally. Super interesting with the hybrid debate at the moment in the UK. We're seeing a real strong push back to the office at the moment. And 87% of CEOs said that in-person attendance in the office would result in more promotions, higher raises, and better work. So it's not looking good for inclusion or working parents or people who live further away, and demographics who've moved forwards with regards to their equality in the workplace. I think we're taking backward steps. So it's going to be so interesting. And the one size fits all often fits none. And then it's like, why they don't understand why they're pushing everyone back in, because 40% of people said that they would leave their business if that's going 5 days a week. Childcare in London costs 15 grand, £15,000 for a kid. So some people just won't be able to get back. I'm digressing, but I think that's something that's going to play out. And I think a huge part of the well-being of the organization is having the flexibility to have some life outside of work. And we're seeing a pushback against that. But the reason it's important, that's where I was going with this. I almost lost my train of thought, then I'm back on. So Oxford did a study with BT, British Telecom, one of the biggest employers in the UK. All their call center staff, about 60,000 of them, I think, like a lot of people. I might be wrong on that, but they did a study with all their call center staff, and they found that a 1-point increase in subjective happiness, so like the higher well-being, resulted in a 12% increase in sales over 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
They've also done a study using Indeed's data, which is the largest well-being study ever done, 18 million individuals. And they created an index, a 10 index fund 100 companies from a well-being perspective across the S&P, the Nasdaq, and the Dow Jones. And they found that those companies, 2-year periods, returned to 30% in the stock market. The rest of the index returned 10%. So the top well-being organizations have a 3x greater return in the stock market.
Mm.
Happy people are 12% more productive. Yet we're pushing people back into the office just because we're leasing expensive office space at the expense of the well-being. And also we just can't switch off because we've got endless notifications, pings. We check our phone 96 times a day. We touch it 2,617 times a day. It takes 25 minutes to get into focus, but yet we check our emails 57 times a day. We're essentially never able to focus or switch off.
Mm.
So it's a minefield, but I think people who get it right will legit keep their best people, and they'll attract the best people in the market as well. And because you've seen it play out on LinkedIn now with millennials and Gen Z get a real hard time, right? But they're the ones who are posting about their experience. And they're the ones that are going to create the employee value proposition that attracts the right people to the business as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's interesting, it's fun. But yeah, a couple of cool studies I thought I'd share.
Yeah, and I will make sure to link all of those in the show notes as well. And I think it's very clear. I mean, one thing that strikes me is what you said earlier, that you didn't necessarily call it well-being. You work with something else. So if we can translate it.
We called it open working. It was essentially workplace of the future. And I sat across real estate, IT, and human resources. So I
Yeah,
was
and
actually able to pull on the things that have the difference.
yeah, and I think that's one very important key takeaway. And the other is, I mean, we really need to start thinking about this properly, because while we are struggling with shortage of staff, we are trying to pull people back into the office and giving them what they actually do not want. And I think that's not something that we can afford at the moment, can we?
No, but then there's a balance to be struck, because then when you go fully remote, belonging suffers.
Exactly.
And any
Yeah.
connections to the organization. And maybe there's a way to develop that in the digital environment, fully remote, but it's much more difficult. At the end of the day, we're just hairless apes, right? We need a bit of connection. I'd love one day we'll meet and we'll go for a coffee and we'll have a hug, right? When we see
Definitely.
each other. And that's nice. But I feel like we're connected because we created space for it. So it's a hybrid paradox. Like, people want more flexibility, which is right and too right. We've opened up the biggest pool of talent ever in the history of the workplace as a result of this, like, enabling people to work remote. Incredible. On the same side, people need more. They want more in-person connection. This is the hybrid paradox. And I've seen it time and time again with an organization I work with, that attrition for new joiners with less than 1 year's tenure was 3x higher post-pandemic than it was compared to pre. So people join the business, they don't feel a sense of connection. They're struggling to learn what they need and they leave.
Yeah.
But there is a balance to be struck. But those one size fits all often neglect to do the work to understand what the job requires, or the geographic nuance requires, or the individual. But yeah, it's super interesting. I could talk about it all day.
Yeah, we could. We definitely could. One question that I have burning on my mind, I mean, you know that I've been in consulting.
I do.
And so I started out my career, and last time I checked, consulting was not the healthiest work environment to be in. Now, you as Deloitte are one of the biggest players with knowledge and data and all the research that you do. How does Deloitte work with that internally?
With difficulty, right? It's difficult. It's hard to talk too much about Deloitte because I work externally with clients. I'll say to any consulting firm where they're advising people external, are they, like, if we advise financial clients and we best practice finance internally, I would question. I think it's part of, like, what you know you're signing up for when you join. And I think the expectation is clear. I was on a panel with the MD from Goldman Sachs yesterday, and we're talking about the hybrid debate, and they're 5 days a week in the office. He said, well, people know what to expect. They come here, they get remunerated very well, and that's that. Do I think that's going to be forever? No. I think right now, the expectation is clear. There's no flopping like we're seeing in a lot of companies. You know what you're signing up for. I don't think we get it perfect, but I don't think any organization do. They focused on geographic flexibility, so let people work completely remote if they want, or depending on what the client needs, which I think is quite progressive. Time is the issue. If you join that industry, as you know, you're going to be working lots of hours. They measure success on time task decline, as a solicitor does. And until that model changes, the workloads will
Mhm.
remain high. But I think they offer what they can. There's a cool case study. BBC said that 44% of all tasks in the legal profession can be automated by Gen AI. And you
Mhm.
think immediately, oh no, like it's going to result in redundancies, and it will, right? There's going to be organizations that focus on pure optimization. Also consider that the average work week in the legal profession is about 60 hours in London. They work even smaller consultants, right? You don't see many not tired solicitors. So if you applied that saving or the reduction in the task to the legal profession, reduce their hours, you could have a 34-hour work week for a lawyer or a solicitor. So you could realistically be looking at a 4-day work week in a legal firm.
Yeah.
And I don't think someone like Alan Overy or someone else ever thought that would be possible in the realms of possibility. Imagine if they did that, the talent they could get, the people they would keep,
Mm.
the satisfaction.
That's
So
a really neat way of looking at it. Yeah. Yeah.
there's going
Really
to be
good
two
perspective.
camps. It's going to be there's going to be organizations that focus on human potential and elevating that employee value proposition, creating a first class workplace. And it's going to be those that focus on pure optimization of people.
Mm.
But then you think where you're going to get the better work from, which law firm do you want to recruit to do your stuff?
Yeah.
I know where I would want.
Yeah. True. Speaking about examples, is there a company that you have in mind that would be a perfect, I know there is no such thing as perfect, but a really good example who live and breathe health and well-being in a way you would like to see it?
Not across all things. I think there's pockets of it. People do it really, really well. So an amazing example, something I just love. I love it. I keep talking about this one, but I love it. So Shopify said that meeting bloat, endless meetings, was one of the biggest pain points to their people. And I'm like, yeah, I get you. So they developed a piece of functionality that they've inserted into Google Hangouts that when you set a meeting up, it tells you how much the meeting is going to cost before you set it up using the average salary bands, which are pulled through from the HR system. So it will say this meeting is about to cost $17,000 with all these people. Does this need to be a meeting? What they've done as a result of that small tweak in the system is save 474,000 meetings. And the first 6 months of the year, meetings were down 18%. I think that's genius.
Yeah.
And then what that does is create space for people to do their work and then ultimately do what they need to be their best self each day. So it enables that the colleagues have a healthish attitude because they've got space to be selfish about their health. And I think it's such a great example of leveraging temporal and flexibility with a real small tweak.
Mm, mm.
I also think it's these little things across the piece that make the huge difference. I think it's awesome.
That's super cool. And this is a cool company example. Is there also something or an example or a tip or idea that we as individuals can do?
It's harder because there's a term in Turkish called eskide ekmek. And what that means, I wrote about this in my book, is essentially means bread on the hook. So what it is, you go into a bakery and you pay for a skid egg, you put the bread on the hook and then you put it on the hook for someone in need. So you pay for a second loaf and then someone can take that. Building the community, supporting others. It's almost the same in the digital environment of work. You have to pay it forward to then get it back to you. But people are putting hour or 30-minute meetings in your diary. There isn't that much you can do about it if you're junior or not a lead. So you have to start doing it for others and then they will start doing it for you. I think about 40 people, I think it was, if I remember that correctly, check their emails while on leave because they're coming in constantly and they're worried about the amount of them when they come back. I think stop sending messages to people when they're on leave. If they're focusing, leave them alone. Also, schedule your meetings to finish 5-10 minutes early. If you've got 6 meetings per day, you'll save 4.8 work weeks of effort per year. And if you start doing that, others will do the same. So I think we have to think eski the ekmek vibes in the workplace. And then you'll be surprised the amount of people who start doing to you these little things. When I'm in the office, I put my out of office on. I let people know there's a delay in my online correspondence. I'm seeing people face to face. I create space to focus. I put an hour in my diary at lunchtime and step away. I can't do 12 to 1 because work, right? I've got client demands. I'm meeting people. My boss wants to talk. I can hardly say, James, sorry about that, mate. I can't do 12. I'm going for a walk. got something important. But I will move that time.
Mm.
That was the time I would give my nan a call every day at 12:15. And she passed away in April suddenly.
Mm.
So I never get a chance to call her again, but I regret nothing, and it brought me so much joy for so long. So I think we got to create the space and then ruthlessly prioritize the things that we need to be our best self. And I
I
think what we
love
do
those tips.
when we do that, if I do that with you and you do that with me, then the third person we're working with, they'll feel they can do the same.
Yeah, I think that's an amazing tip because it has a ripple effect and it is also acting by example. And there is something else I noticed. Whenever I get an email from you, I notice your signature and I love that. And I think that is another small example
Yeah, I
of how
forgot
you
that. So I'm dyslexic, and I said I'm delightfully dyslexic. So spelling errors are expected is the first part, and then equally the second part. So I don't let perfection get in the way of progress. I'd rather get something done if it's got just a couple of errors, then that's fine. But secondly, I'm sending this email at a time that suits me. Please respond when it suits. I notice those little things, and people often feel the pressure if I'm sending an email late. But maybe that's because I've stepped away in the day. I've gone to the gym or something else. So I think these little things, they add up. As I said, well-being is no small thing, but it's made up of small things. There's Zeno, the Stoics, about 4,000 or 2,000 years ago.
Yeah, and I love that. I think that little tip with the signature in the email, that could be already a big thing. Because even that, you mentioned earlier people checking emails in their holidays or whatever. And just that little note saying, well, look, you don't have to respond right away, takes out so much pressure without us realizing that. So it can be those little things that make a huge difference.
I think so.
Cool. Ryan, what has been your biggest learning so far regarding healthy work and well-being?
What have you done? That's a good question. I'm going to say, right, I think if to do things properly in this space and to really make an impact, create workplaces people can thrive, we've got to completely change the way we talk about well-being. And my learning is that the current way we're doing it isn't working, and it could be potentially making things worse.
Hmm.
And I think we've got to be brave and start measuring. And a lot of us in this space are going to come up short if we treat well-being with the respect and discipline that we would in other function in the business. You can hardly go to marketing and say, what's your reach this month? Or what are your engagements? Don't know, we're not measuring, but that's what we do in this space
Mm.
because it's inherently personal. And no one gets into this world because they don't want the help. They all do it because they've been through something. That's why you're here doing what you do. That's why I do what I do. So my learning is we have to change the way that we talk about it in the workplace and move away from the soft, fluffy focus, use some measurement, trial, iterate, take an agile approach, do some things. And yeah, the way it's perceived will completely change.
Mm. Mm. Yeah, and that is already giving me the cue. We are reaching the end of this conversation, reaching the end of our time, and I want to have a look into the future. And I shared this article with you where surgeons in the US, they shared a common concern that they were looking towards this mental health crisis that I think we are already in the middle of, to really also jeopardize democracy. So they went quite far in there, I would even say what they are asking from the government and how to react and what they are concerned about. And I know that you are big on data and you're very well read and you have all the data on your mind. How do you see this? Where are we going? Is it really a gloomy state, or is there still time? Sometimes it almost feels like climate change. Is it 12:05, or where do we stand? How do you see that?
So difficult. I think there's going to be I think certain companies are going to do it right. They're going to understand the value. They're going to have the right leaders. And they're going to say, this is something we absolutely need to prioritize. There'll be certain people who can get on the right side of it. There are going to be certain companies, some pure automation, and treat people like resources as opposed to humans. So I don't think there's one size. I think with the perception of it, I can speak from the workplace perspective, is that we push everything at the individual, so social, emotional, etc. But until that changes, we're going to continue just to give people apps and solutions to fix themselves and not address the work, which is the main cause of stress in the workplace. So, yeah, I think we got a chance to do something well, and there's going to be pockets of it. And I'm going to do my bloody utmost to share those good news stories and get others on that train. There's going to be organizations that don't focus on that, because like on bottom line, but those that focus on the triple bottom line, planet, people, profit, will win, I think. But there's going to be two camps.
Mm.
So I intend to make as much noise as possible to share the good people. And I think the attitudes are changing regards to demographics and like the millennials and Gen Z as well. And I think, as I said, they get a hard rap, but they do care about the purpose of the organization. I know it's a big sweeping generalization, but also they're going to prioritize what they need in the workplace. So I think we got hope, and we got hope that the right people get into positions of power and are able to influence and do the right thing. And if I get asked to contribute, trust me, I'll be putting forward my case very strongly. I think we're a few years from me being invited to that table.
Mm. Mm. Well, yeah, I mean, at the same time, I feel it's a very exciting time, and it's a very beautiful and rewarding journey to be on as well. And I think you feel the same, because there's really a way how we can make a difference and change things.
It's the Gen AI use case, right? You've got two camps. There's those that are going to focus on human potential and elevating what it is to be a human in the workplace, creating space for what's important. And there's those that won't. But I think those that do will win out, and we're seeing that with the Oxford study. In fact, I'm going to be more Pollyanna. I'm bloody confident that we're going to move to a good place, because those organizations that don't prioritize their people are not going to get the right talent, and they're
True.
going to lose out in the workplace. So yeah, I'm going camp better. We're going to make improvements.
Cool. I love that. What advice would you give your younger self?
Stop putting so much pressure on yourself. It's going to be okay.
Oh,
But you're not a piece of shit. You're doing what you can, and one day it'll work out, and you'll be proud of yourself. So just ease off.
beautiful advice.
I wish I could go back and just give that young man a hug sometimes. I find it difficult to look back in the past with that hurts. But
Mm.
if I could go back, I'd be like, yeah, you're good. You got this. Be a bit nicer to yourself.
Oh, cool. And my very last question for you, and now you have a wish free, and it is gonna turn into reality tomorrow. What would you wish for workplace?
What I wish for. I'm going to something nice and easy. I want everyone in the world to also schedule the meetings to finish 5-10 minutes. They can at least get up and stretch. Something small, like it would save so much time. How many people work on laptops, do you reckon? What's like global workforce? How many people are in work? So we've got 9 billion. So if you say half, we really, we're 4.5 billion, right? Times 4.8 work week per, yeah, and say 20% work on laptops. We would save 4.32 billion work weeks this year. If everyone also schedules their meetings to finish 5-10 minutes early, that's assuming that 50% of global population work, and 20% of them work on laptops. That's how much time we would save. It's these things that make the huge difference. So that's what I would want for everyone.
Boom, there we go. And that's exactly what we're doing right now, Ryan. We're gonna finish and wrap this up 5 minutes early. We're gonna give each other 5 minutes of our time.
I'm going to go make a cup of tea and look into the rain for a minute and stay away from the screen.
Perfect. Thank you so much for your time and sharing all your insights, wisdom, and knowledge. And for your new role, I wish you all the best and hope to speak to you soon.
We will. We'll talk soon. Thank you for having me.
Ach, so geil. Darf man geil im Podcast sagen? Ich weiß nicht. Aber hast du gemerkt, was Ryan mit mir am Schluss noch gemacht hat? Er hat mir in guter alter Consultant-Manier noch schnell einen kleinen Case verkauft, und ich fand es einfach großartig. wie er das auch nochmal dargestellt hat mit der Zeit, die wir sparen könnten, wenn wir uns wirklich alle diese 5 Minuten schenken und ein Meeting auch einfach mal eher beenden. Und neben diesem einen Tipp war, glaube ich, in diesem Podcast so wahnsinnig vieles, dass wir als einzelne Person mitnehmen können, dass wir als Führungskraft mitnehmen können, dass wir als Teammitglied mitnehmen können und einfach auch nochmal die Perspektive, dass jeder und jede einzelne von uns auf seine oder ihre Art und Weise etwas zu einem anderen Arbeitsalltag beitragen kann. Und mit diesem Denkanstoß entlasse ich dich nun und vielleicht kannst auch du direkt das nächste Meeting, das du leitest, ebenfalls 5 Minuten früher beenden. Ich hoffe, diese Episode hat dir Spaß gemacht und auch viele Insights gebracht. Wenn das der Fall war, freue ich mich riesig über eine 5-Sterne-Bewertung, denn das bewirkt, dass dieser Podcast noch mehr Menschen erreichen kann. Und ich freue mich natürlich auch riesig, wenn du nächste Woche wieder dabei bist. Bis bald!